Welcome to the Plasma Podcast. And today we have with us Kiata Hudson. I met Kiata at one of our open houses at one of our collection centers. She came to us as a patient representative and spoke at our open house. And so I wanted to have her on and tell her story. She's got a really incredible story here, and I think it really highlights the continued need for plasma donation and the therapies created from plasma donation. So, Kiata, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Kiata has in her family, and she's going to tell more of the story, but her children have suffered from a condition called CDG.
No, it's
No.
CGD,
Oh,
chronic
CGD. I got it wrong, man.
granulomatous disease. Yeah,
Okay.
it kind of I know it kind of sounds similar, but it can get
Hmm.
confusing. But yeah, it's chronic granulomatous disease, CGD.
Oh, okay. Okay. And again, Kiata, welcome. And I do know that Kiata has an Instagram out there. So Kiata, what's your Instagram?
You'll find me on Hudson Boys Foundation as well as Mommy Yada.
Okay. All right. Mama Yada. That's not the
You
one that I don't have that one. So you'll have to
don't
send
have
that
that
to
one?
me and
Oh, sorry about that.
I could, no, that's okay. And I could put it in the show notes. So,
Okay, I would
um,
definitely give you that correct. I believe that's the correct one because I always use Hudson Boys, but definitely Hudson Boys Foundation is the link that
okay.
I continue to use.
Okay. So today's episode is really about educating the audience on this condition and how plasma donation plays into that. And so maybe you could explain to us what CGD is and how it affects those who have it.
Okay, CGD is an inherent immune system disorder. It deals with the white blood cells. So, with the white blood cells usually fight off infections with kids with CGD, it doesn't work properly. And those that have it may have life threatening bacteria infections, fungal infections. So, it's very, very serious. And a lot of people compare it to sickle cell because
Okay.
they, I believe, deal with red, but we deal with white.
Okay. Interesting. And so how common is
Um, it's not a common it's a very rare affection. I mean, a rare disease. Maybe 8 people per million have it. It's two types of CGDs. They have the X-link and the autoimmune recessive CGD. If I might not be pronouncing that right, but
Mhm.
it's two different types, and it depends on how it's inherited from the different parents. Like you have the different types. Well, I'm sorry, the different types causing some proteins to be in the blood cells that's not working properly. So both of them are similar. They have similar symptoms.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And so how did it manifest in your children? Like
Well,
how did you know? How did this come to be?
all three of my children had the most common form, which is the X link. Because of
Okay.
that gene part is like the X chromosome and it affects most boys. So I had 3 sons and it affected all 3 sons.
Mm,
The signs and the symptoms that led to the diagnosis with them is like with each child, it was a little different. With my firstborn, it was more severe, continuous infections. He would have high fevers that would never go away. He would have skin infections. Well, it would come and go, but there's one that never left. They had to laser it off on his face. Um, and it was just he would continue to be sick until we figure out what's going on. We never was able to figure out if what he had. It was not until he later on passed away that we could like, okay, we think this is what's going on. But when if you have another child at 6 months and it's a boy, we have to test them for this, and because this is what we believe it is. So then
mm.
I got pregnant again and I had a boy. So with Rashad, his was more serious as well, but his didn't attack his body right away. So it was like the same symptoms I was seeing before. I was like, yeah, I believe this is it. And it was only, I want to say 6 months they tested him. And so it was like, okay, yes, he does have it. And right away, I started seeing little things I saw with my firstborn. And then I had Rakari, and it's the same thing. It was showing the same symptoms, but Ricari attacked his lungs quickly. So he was like 9 months, and he had to get a lung removal because at that moment they attacked his lungs, and
Mm.
the pneumonia spread it too quickly to where they couldn't to heal it. So he had to get a lung removal, which is has a left removal, and then later on he had a right upper removal of the lung.
Wow, wow. So what's the ongoing impact of that? Because this is Ricari, right?
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
For Ricari, the ongoing is like he's 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 good, but he has had his times where he continued to struggle with different infections. But
Mm.
he's going on he's 14, and he's had medications that's for especially for CGD was triple therapy, and he's been using that, and it's been great. Like I said, some days he can have an infection, attack it right away. He's old enough to know, hey, this is not feeling right. I'm not feeling right, so I need help. And and recently, a couple of weeks ago, we had to do that. He had a fever. I lasted maybe 2 days. I It's like, no, we're going to call the doctor. Call the doctor. We went right in, and they see that one of his lymph nodes was swollen, so they took care of it right away. So it's like just taking action quickly. It can help a lot. It can really take care of the problem right away.
Okay. And so what are the treatments like?
The each child, I believe, are it should be on triple therapy, but with Ricari, he's on triple therapy, which is you have antifungal, you have the antibiotics, prophylaxis,
Mm.
and you have what is called interferon gamma. Interferon gamma is basically an injection that's giving um in different parts of the body. It could be arms, legs, stomach, and that goes into the body where it helps them replacing things that is they're missing. It helps keep them healthy. So as long as you're on those triple therapies, things can really go well. You can really have
Mm.
a long lasting life and less hospital visits.
Okay. Okay. Maybe you can share with us the journey from, say, like diagnosis, because so your firstborn, you noticed something was wrong.
Yes.
And so share that journey. You touched on it a little bit with your firstborn and then Rashad and then Ricari, but maybe you could talk about that journey from diagnosis to figuring out what you needed to do as a parent.
Okay. So I start with Robert Jr. So his symptoms were he had fevers. He was continued sick. Where when I said sick is he would not eat anything in the beginning. So then we kind of start getting medications in, and still we're going from doctor to doctor to doctor because no one at this time know what's going on.
Mm.
Test results is coming like either, oh, maybe he has a bacteria infection, or maybe he has this infection, but nothing's concrete of why he's continuing to have fevers. So we're like, okay, something's going on. So we continue to keep going to different doctors. We finally went to a doctor, and they was like, I believe this is what it is, but we need you to come here to this particular hospital so we can treat him more. Okay, no problem. I started at one hospital, and I was like, yeah, no one's figuring out. We went to another hospital, no one's figuring out. I was like, okay, we need to figure out because at this time, my child does not want to eat food, solid foods.
Hmm.
Everything has to be in a bottle. It's like his
Mm.
whole body was like, I need something to cool me off. I don't want it by mouth. I need it quickly. So fever starts slowing down, but still the appetite. He continued to be a happy baby. You wouldn't even know that was anything wrong. And it was just like, okay, something's got to be going on. What are we missing? So I went to finally to one hospital. It was like, this right here is what we believe. We need to do what is called a biopsy on the lymph nodes, and that take a piece of that, and that should be able to tell us, hey, yes, this is CGD, or this is
Mm.
something else that we just like don't really know. And they said the other blood tests that you've been taking, I mean, well, you've been they've been giving you taking the blood from him to test different. It's not what they're supposed to be doing. With CGD, it's a special blood test that needs to be taken to know for sure if this is it. So they did that. They wanted to do the lymph nodes. So he got real ill. He ends up having a seizure before the procedure.
Hmm.
So he had a seizure. they relaxed his body. They didn't want to do anything else right that time. They just like, let's just relax his body to see if we'll be able to do the surgery. And the next day, the next thing came, his body got worse. His little body just took a toll for the worse. And it was not until he had he turned a year on in July. It was July, um, it was June 2nd. He was like, the doctor was like, Mom, I really think that we need to try something else. And he's like,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure how you would feel about it. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, try something else. We want to try if he can take like if he could take this particular step, and they was hesitant about telling me this. I'm like, okay, so a different step, maybe we'll be able to figure out this without putting too much pressure on his body. And I was like, okay, no problem, we're in ICU. I'm sorry. And while we're in ICU, I'm like, no problem, he's rested, he's not fighting, he's not doing anything to take the cord out, so let's try it. I guess Robert Julian was like, no, we're not trying anything. And he
Hmm.
took the serve and he passed away
Mm.
shortly after
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
And with his, after he passed in his autopsy, we were trying like, okay, will it show CGD? It didn't. It showed septic shock PCI infection, which is his whole body just went into shock. Everything that was going on, it just shut all his organs down, and so he passed away. So I know that
Mm.
after, I would have to again be tested, not knowing that I was already pregnant a little after that. So then Rashad, I found out I was pregnant with Rashad. We did 6 months. He was tested, and I was tested as well, and my husband was tested, because they was like, at this point we know for sure if he has it, is someone passed it on, and they was really hard, like, "Oh, Mom, you're probably the carrier." I'm like, I never been sick, I never been diagnosed with anything. It's like, yeah, you might not, but we believe that you a carrier. I'm like, okay, no problem. I had to talk to my mom, like, Mom, have you ever heard of this? And she was like, no. I talked to my dad. I'm my mom's only child. So my dad was like, my siblings, have they ever been sick? Can you ask their moms? I'm just trying to figure out where's this coming from. So
Hmm.
then Rashad was diagnosed at 6 months for CGD, and I was diagnosed as a carrier. And I was
Okay.
like, wow, this is weird. Like, where is this coming from? I still was clueless.
Hmm.
And I believe the doctors were clueless as well. And they were
Hmm.
giving me things to read up on. And I was just like, I don't know. And in the beginning, I was against everything. I was like, I need a second opinion. I just don't believe this happened.
Hmm.
I know he has little issues, but it seems to be viral. And I'm trying to diagnose my own child. Like, I just don't believe it. And
Yeah.
again, I believe it was a lot of grief and a lot of heartbreak. Like, I'm still dealing with, and now I'm dealing with this again, a year later, but it's still like, what is going on? So at the age of 2, Rashad, and he had an infection in the brain. So I went in thinking it's a viral infection. They did a test, and it was like, it's on. I'm sorry. They did blood tests and said it was a viral. I was like, you sure? It was like, yeah, okay. We did medication at that time. I guess again, no hospitals know what to do. Um,
Mm.
they knew to test that he had CGD, but anything else is just regular testing. So um, I went home, gave him the medication. Maybe I want to say maybe 2 days, 3 days later, his whole left side wouldn't move. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, something's going on. So we went back to the hospital. I was like, listen, I don't know what happened. I don't know if he slept on it, but his whole left side wouldn't move. So they came back, gave me the worst news I could have. My child just had a stroke.
Wow.
So I'm like, huh? Like, he's 2. How did he have a stroke? And that's when, at that moment, we find out that he had the abscess on his brain that caused his left side to, his right side to be
Oh.
weak, left side weakness. And at 3 years old, he started having seizures, severe seizures. Like, he was seized from the hospital, from home to the hospital. He was seized continuously. So we dealt with that, and he just continued to deal with seizures and other different infections. But he was just the happiest little boy, and he just continued to strive and went to school, continued to do everything else. He wore a brace on his left foot, a brace on his hand, but that never stopped him. He just was a good, he was just a sweetheart. And then he
Hmm.
continued to deal with his infections back to back. And he was 11 years old. He was in the hospital from April to June. And in June is when he lost his life with CGD. He was 11 years old. His body just took a toll for the worse. He fought all the way to the end. I mean, he was just laying there looking like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. We celebrate his birthday in
Hmm.
the hospital and everything. And at 11 years old, he passed away. And his autopsy did show that it was CGD.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they suspected CGD all along, but there's
correct.
no like they had no definitive proof.
Correct. It was
It's
no,
just
they
like
had
a
a definitive proof with
combination.
the testing,
Oh,
but it was still like with Ricari, I'm sorry, with Rashad, it definitely proved that he had CGD, but
okay.
it was still, everyone was still learning what to do
Uh,
with CGD patients. They was like,
mhm.
okay, we're still researching. We're unclear what is going on. So I left one hospital and went to another hospital where the immunologist was a little more familiar with it. So he was able to say, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what it's treated. But again, I was the mother, like, I understand that, but I don't understand it. Can you
Mhm.
help me? Because I'm so clear. I mean, I'm so clueless of what's going on. And I felt like they were just giving him something to just like, oh, just to help. And again, I'm grieving. I'm not trying to
Mhm.
even hear them, but I'm still doing whatever I need to do. Sometimes I was like, okay, we don't need to take this. He's too little to take this. I had to start being an
Yeah.
advocate for him. And I was like, no, let's research this again. Some things they weren't taking, some things they did, some vaccinations they didn't take because their bodies couldn't take it. But it was just like, I'm like, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. I really want you guys to tell me why we're taking this. So eventually we got a immunologist that really sat down and talked to us, explained to us what's going on. Then we was able to go to the NIH, which is awesome, and they
Mhm.
specialize with children daily with this. And that's where I believe I became more comfortable with
Okay.
doing. I'm in the great hands, and they understand it better, and we
Mhm.
continue with it. And yeah, now is with Ricari. He's able to get all the testing done, all the extra coverage, because now they understand. And now we have a
Yeah.
team that is ready to take charge at any time and know what to do. So with him, he's 6 months, the same thing. He was diagnosed. He has severe infections where it attacked his lungs, and his lungs was attacked at 6 months. I'm sorry, 9 months. He had, like I said, the left lower removal, and then later on in 2015, he had a right upper removal of his lungs. He's diagnosed with G6PD. He has asthma, but he's a fighter. He continues to do everything. A lot of things he can't do because of CGD, but he
Mhm.
continues to fight, and he just has the lifelong regimen, which is antibiotics, antifungal, and to prevent infections. And then he has the interferon gamma that he continues like 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday.
Yeah, that I mean that's got to be a process in and of itself, right? Just all those trips and managing all that has to be really challenging.
Oh, it is. It's very challenging, and the challenges is like I don't know, it plays a role with everyone, not just the household. It plays a role with the family members because they know, hey, Ricari can't be around this. Ricari can't have this. You have to make sure this is taken care of. So it's
Mhm.
like a village. The village is still helping us, but the village also understands. I educate daily. The teachers, my parents, my family, my friends, everyone knows. And they don't treat him like he's, oh my God, we can't do this. No, they know, and they just respect it, and they go ahead and treat him like he's a normal child because he wants to be treated like normal. He'll tell you, I'm
Mhm.
okay. I just can't be here near stair water. Oh, I'm okay. You have to make sure your house is clean. Oh, I'm okay.
Mhm.
And that's really all. And he knows his health, and he knows how to manage his health. it's great. It's great
Yeah.
because I continue educating him too because I told him this is your health and you have to understand it.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to meet Ricari, and he's really into video games. Uh,
Yes.
and he's really into mods, which he had to explain to me what that was. So I had no idea what that was. And then I went home and talked to my kids about it. And they're like, oh, yeah, you can modify these video games and stuff. So it seems like he's got a lot of spirit in him there. And he was just a great young man.
Yes, thank you. He is. He is.
Yeah. So, just real quick before moving on, it had to be really frustrating in the early days when they're trying to give him everything and you're not getting a great explanation. Can you just talk about that from a patient advocacy standpoint? Healthcare, it's not like you can just go to the doctor and things are fixed, right?
Sure.
And especially in a case like this where they're treating the underlying symptoms instead of really understanding the cause. And so it had to be challenging. I imagine you had to fight. You probably had some arguments
Mhm.
with doctors, I imagine. So
Oh
maybe you could tell us a
yeah.
little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean it was very challenging and I had to really show my butt a couple of times. But at
Mm,
the end of the day, I knew it was for my children. And I know I had to fight for my children. They looked at me like, oh, she's a young mother. She doesn't know anything. Let's just tell her this. And I was
mhm,
like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to research. I did a little research for myself. And I just continue to ask questions. I continue to write things down. I continue to um just fight. I mean, I like to say I continue to fight. I when it came to doctors telling me this, I'm like, okay, give me 1 second. Any medication they gave me, I research the side effects. I research um why they're giving my child this. And they started understanding that okay, this mom is not playing. This
mhm,
dad is not playing. They want the best for their child, and they're by all means necessary, they're gonna make sure we understand that. And we're not gonna
mhm,
give them any just, oh, let's just give them these words, or let's just tell them this. And no, they're not. And it was every child was different, but every reaction was the same. Like I know this
mhm,
child and this child didn't have the same, but we're going to treat them like this. Even when we go into the hospital, it's a red flag stating do not allow any of the Hodson boys to go behind and say, oh, just give them this medication. Call the immunologist, call the infectious disease doctor, call whoever's under in their case, ask mom who they need to call, ask dad if you know who needs to call. Whatever parents there, ask them who they need us to call. Do not allow them to leave without being seen by without letting their doctors know. So it had to come to that point because we were getting sent home with antibiotics, like it was just a viral infection when it was deeper.
mhm,
And I believe a couple of times could have been taken care of better. And if they would just listen, and a lot of them didn't. And it was like
mhm.
now it's like they listen, they hear us clearly. And I speak loudly to let make sure they know that. And it's like now we have the best relationship with the hospitals, the doctors, everyone, the
Yeah.
parenting, who if even if they're not in his team, they know them. They know him.
Mm,
They know the story. So it's like,
yeah.
okay, my voice has been heard, and okay, I can calm down now. And now Rakari is like that. He's making sure his voice is heard. He lets them
Mhm,
know what's going on, how he needs to be treated. How are you feeling? I feel okay, but I know something's wrong. And
mhm.
I've been teaching him that. You're 14. Soon I won't be in the room to be able to speak for you. I need you to speak for yourself.
Yeah. 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 And so as a parent, I'm having a difficult time imagining how you navigated the grief. You're still trying to get the grief from the loss, and then you're still trying to raise two kids, right, who have a condition. And so maybe you could walk us through like how you
No, just one.
navigated that.
Just one child. Remember, just Rakari.
Oh, at one
Yeah,
time, yeah,
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 just one
understood,
child.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, what can I say? Grief is undescribable. That's what I would say. Grief
Hmm.
is undescribable. you don't really know how to feel. And I experienced grief where today I'm happy, tomorrow I'm not. Today I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited, tomorrow I'm not. All right, now I'm talking to you. And maybe when I get off, I'll be crying my eyes out. But,
Mm-hmm.
or I may just be smiling. It's like, wow, I did that, you know. But I continue
Yeah.
to encourage myself as a parent dealing with it. I just pray. And that's what been getting me through it daily. Praying, asking God to just get me through this, the unknown, the known, and just I continue to write and I listen to music. I celebrate my children's lives. I celebrate them there while they're gone. I celebrate Robert Jr. and Rashad's birthday, even though they're not here to celebrate it. I
Mm.
celebrate just I by celebrating them, not just the holidays, but I celebrate them daily, just talking about them. I said,
Sure.
and with Kari, by him having to lose a sibling, it's like, okay, how do I go about doing that? And easily, we talk about it. We have open communication about it. I make sure he understands that, hey, you are okay. And if you need to talk, talk to us. Let me know what's going on. Let me know how you feel. Let me know what you need. And he's seen a therapist in school. I asked him, is there anything else he wants? He was like, no, I'm okay. He comes sometimes. He just randomly say, hey, you remember when we did that, Rashad? You remember when we went here? So with the grief and me knowing that I gave Rashad and Ricard. I mean, I'm sorry, Rashad and Robert Jr. Even though he was so young, I didn't do too much with him because he was only a year old when he passed. But with Rashad, knowing that his memories, he had memories. I was able to take him to Disney. He was able to go on trips, do things, and just know that he smiled. That
Mm.
made me feel wonderful. I was able to be like, okay, he was happy. He lived a happy life. So with me just grieving, it's just knowing that I did the best that I could do. I continue to just spread the word and to just give back in his memory and their
Yeah.
memory. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So how has all of this changed your perspective on life?
Um, it's changed just because I know you have to enjoy life. You have to you have to continue to live life to the fullest, and that's what I've been doing. I mean, you
Mm.
can't give up. You have to keep pushing. And I learned that they they did this. Their journey is lived through me. So it's like I just want to spend time with family. I just tell people enjoy your family, enjoy your children.
Hmm.
You have healthy children. Thank God for that. You know,
Yes.
because it's not easy. And I say don't take it for granted. You know, when you have this life where you don't have to go in the hospital, you don't have to do this, and that's really it. I just continue, like I said, to spread the word. I continue to advocate. I continue to just let people know my life, my story, and that what keeps me going, pushing, because my life has
Yeah.
changed and it continues to change daily. But as long as I know that the world knows our name and they can continue to know and just know that I did the best and I can do it and continue to do the best, then what makes me happy.
So you mentioned advocacy. Tell me about your advocacy and how you're choosing to remember the legacy, but also push for awareness.
So I started in 2018. I started a foundation, House and Boys Foundation Incorporated, where it's in the middle of it. It says courageous, and basically what it means to me is my children were courageous enough God was courageous enough to pick me as to be their mother, but only that I was able to celebrate each one of my children's lives with this. And so I started giving back to the community and like on holidays, I would give back financially. I would give that clothes, food, whatever. Most importantly, I'm there to listen to parents that have been dealing with this. I'm able to hear them, understand them, because when I was going through it, no one's there to understand me or know what I
Hmm.
was going through, what I may needed. So I'm just there physically for these parents that need I go to the hospital. I've talked to parents that children in ICU, they might not have the same illness, but they're still fighting for something. And I just talk to them, let them know I'm here. If you need anything, here's my information. You can always give me a call. And one parent, maybe 30 minutes, we sat and she cried, she hugged me, and she was just like, this stick with me. It was in May last year. And she was like, you're so strong. How do you do it? She was like, only been here a week. I know he's going to be okay,
Hmm.
but you lost two. How are you okay? And I was like, some days I'm not, but I keep fighting because they fought. And you got to remember
Hmm.
who we're here for and who we're fighting for. And they're looking at us. If we break, they break. So we have to remain strong for them because they're the ones that's dealing with it. And she was like, oh my God. She just cried, cried, cried. So it
Yeah.
really, yeah, it
Yeah.
really helped.
Yeah, like that's, I mean, you're just such an inspiration. And I so appreciate the journey that you've gone through and now spreading the word and just being a resource. And I use this term all the time, but a beacon of light for other people. And so thank you for doing that. Have there been any advancements in research or treatment for CGD?
Nothing that I'm too much aware of right now. I know we're going to the NIH soon, so we'll probably find out some things. But they really just continue. They'll talk about certain like antibiotics changes up. This is better. This antifungal. I'm sorry, not antifungal. This prophylaxis may be better than this prophylaxis
Hmm.
antibiotics. So things like that, but nothing like concrete. Say this is what works. But if you ask me again after June, I may have something different for you.
Yeah.
But right now is nothing that I'm aware of.
Okay. What message would you want to share with other parents? You touched on it a little bit already, but other parents maybe going through similar situations.
Keep pushing. When you feel like you can't push, you can't, and you feel like you want to give up, don't. Just keep going. It's always say is at the end of the storm is always the rainbow. It may not be a bright rainbow, it might be good, but long as you know that you did all you can do, and that's all you can do. As long as you know
Hmm.
that you did your best and your child is happy, um everything else is, you can't do anything else. You just continue to get God, keep God first, and just be advocacy for your child. Advocate. Just don't give up. Let your child know that you got their back.
Yeah, that's great. So now thinking about plasma donation and tying this back to some of the therapies that are created here from plasma donation. And so in particular, there's one immunoglobulins, which help the immune system boost the ability of the immune system to fight off infection. So tell us from your view, the importance of plasma donation and why we need to make sure that people understand conditions like CGD so they can continue to come out and donate.
Is very plasma is used daily in thousands of individuals that with chronic disease and PI. So just providing that antibiotic and antibodies that don't work, it's like it's necessary because like my child, he daily fights with bacteria infections and
Hmm.
viral infections. So with plasma, it helps everybody that donates plasma. It helps a child that's in their bed sick in ICU. So when you're donating these plasmas, that plasma gives that child life. It gives them something to look forward to fight. Is because now it's like, okay, we're down, but we got this plasma, and this plasma helps us help my child. It's like, okay, to replace these things, these antibiotics that weren't working. And it's just I can't even say more. Just it is wonderful. It helps. It is needed. It is important. So I just think people that all the people that donate plasma, I just thank them because they're making an impact on someone's life that they don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned PI, which stands for primary immunodeficiency, and
Correct.
a lot of the treatments that are made are directed towards primary immunodeficiency. It's a little bit different from blood in that blood everybody sees an immediate connection to, right? You donate it, and then a few days later, it's probably transfused into somebody. But plasma is a little bit different in that Plasma is collected and then it sits for 45 to 60 days. And then it goes into the manufacturing process. So it could be a year later after somebody donates plasma that it's going into a patient. And so there's a little bit connection lost just due to that time gap there. But it's just as critical, right? And these treatments that are made from these therapies that are made from plasma, they do help people around the world. And yes, these are rare and chronic conditions. However, we're talking rare in a population of 8 billion people. So there are a lot of people around the world who rely on these. And so thank you for sharing your story. And this is one of the important components of the podcast is so that plasma donors can understand the connection to the patient here. And so I really appreciate you sharing your story. And thanks for being on today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for just allowing me to tell my story. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So again, you do you want to plug your socials again?
Okay, let me get it correct so I can make sure
Yeah.
everyone understands. The first one will be Hots and Boys Foundation. That is spelled HODGSON Boys BOYS Foundation FOUNDATION. And then the other one with my personal one, if you want to, is MOMMYYATTA Mommy Yada 30.
All right. And I will link to these in the show notes so that our listeners can follow along. All right. Well, thank you for being on. Really appreciate it. And we will talk soon, Kiata. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me again.